So were you able to solve this week's Excel challenge using Power Query? Find out how Excel MVP Alan Murray approached it with his step-by-step instructions using Power Query and PivotTables.
Let's look at how we can achieve this. From the Sales Report Excel workbook, I will click on Data, Get Data, from File, from Workbook, to grab those three tables from the Sales Data Excel workbook. This is mine. If I click Import, we are taken to this navigator window and we have a few options here. You can see there are 4 tables and 5 worksheets. Now we are only interested in the East Sales, North Sales and South Sales tables. So we could check the Select Multiple Items box and choose those tables for importing. This will work brilliantly. However, if we were setting this up for the future, just like demonstrated on the course, it may be beneficial for us to select the folder, because what if in the future we had a West Sales or a Northwest Sales? We would want our Power Query solution to still work with those future changes in mind. So I don't want to be that specific and choose those 3 tables. I'm going to select the whole folder, transform this data, and then simply filter the other ones out. So here we are with the list of tables and worksheets from that folder, and we have the folder path in the formula bar above, and I just want those 3 tables. Now on the course, Ken showed how we can filter out the tables using this kind column, and I could do that now to reduce me to the tables. But in this example, there is a consistency, even with the other worksheets there as well, that the tables I want end with the word sales. So I'm going to use that as a way of identifying those and filtering out the rest. If we click the filter arrow in the name column, text filters, and come across to ends with, I will simply type the word sales, click OK, and everything apart from those 3 tables is removed. I can now remove these last 3 columns by clicking Item, holding Shift and clicking Hidden, and then right mouse click Remove Columns. And then we will expand those tables with the double-headed arrow in the Data column. Choose which columns we want to use, which is all of them, but we will uncheck the original column name as prefix option. And if we click OK, here is our stacked list of all the data from those 3 tables. Just a little bit more work to do on this query. Next up, I want to tidy up the first column. It says North Sales, East Sales, because that's the name from the table. And that's useful that it's done that, because now we know what region it came from. But I don't want the word underscore sales in there. So if I select the name column, replace values on the home tab, and I'm going to ask it to replace underscore sales with nothing, so that when we click OK, we are just left with the region name North, East, South. With that done, I'll now rename the column from name to region. We check our data types. That first column is text. Second one is alphanumeric. Let's change that to a date. Now I can select dates from the drop down here. These are UK dates. I'm in the UK with UK settings. But what I'm going to do instead, although I don't need to, is come to using locale. But this might be something you need to do if you're not based in the UK. If I click using locale, change it to date as it should be, and it will default to English United Kingdom, and click OK. And that's a date data type. And then the last 2, click on the first one, hold Control, click on the second one. I'll right mouse click to make those whole numbers. Change type, whole number. Let's open up the queries pane on the left hand side so that I can right mouse click and rename it. Something more useful than sales-data XLSX. I think I'll just call it sales. And then we're going to close and load this as a table in the worksheet. So the drop down for close and load to. Now I'm putting this as a table in the worksheet. We could just load it as a connection only and still create a pivot table from that. So if that is how you approach this challenge, that's fine. We still get the end result that we're working towards. But it's only a small table, so I'm going to put this on the worksheet. Existing worksheets, I'll put it on this one, cell G2. If I click OK, here is our appended and cleaned data ready for our analysis. Now I want to create a pivot table from this, but I do want the information about the products as well. So to solve this, I'm going to load the other table into Power Query and then use a merge query to combine the two. So if I click in that products table, data from table/range, to open up the Power Query editor, there's nothing we need to do in here. The name of the query is great. The data types are good. Their data's clean. I'm simply jumping to close and load to, and we already have this as a table on the worksheet. So this one will be only create connection, click OK. And we have both queries loaded in that pane on the right hand side. We now want to bring the product and the category information into the sales table to create a pivot table from. So we're going to do a merge query. Now I could have done that whilst I was on Power Query a moment ago, before I closed and loaded that products table. So now I'm going to jump back in there. From data, if I click get data, launch Power Query editor, select the sales table from the queries pane, and on the home tab, merge queries, and I want to merge it into the current sales table. We could create a third query from this, but I'm going to keep it with the sales table I've got. That sales table is now selected as the first table. The drop down will choose our other table products, and then I can select the two code columns as the two keys that match. So I'm using the classic VLOOKUP scenario here, but using a merge query to bring in those two columns, products and category, into the sales table. And to do that, we want our left outer join kind, which is the default one currently selected. And we have this preview here that we do have a 465 out of 465 match. If we click OK, that will bring in that extra column with the table. So now I will click the button to expand that, choose the columns we want. So I don't want the code because I already have that in this table, and I don't want the original column name as a prefix, but we do want product and category. Click OK, they come in, we are really getting somewhere. I no longer need the product code column. We could leave it there, it's not doing any harm. But now that I've got the name of the product, something that we're more interested in when it comes to our pivot table reports, I'm not planning on using that code, so I'm going to remove it. It's done its job, I won't be needing it when it comes to the report. Now another challenge that we have is we wanted to create those price groupings. Whether somebody spent between 0 and 50, 50 and 100, 100 to 200, or 200 plus. And that's going to happen on that sales column. So we want a conditional column, a new conditional column to perform those tests and get that done. Now we could go and write our own if functions to do that, but what I'm going to do instead is keep that sales column selected, and in the add column tab, use column from examples. And I'll choose from selection, so it's focusing on that sales column. It's the only numeric column I have in this example, but in a different example, other columns may distract it if I use all columns. So from selection, and let's start creating our groupings. So this first row is 116. So if I type 100 to 200, that's what I want it to look like, and press enter. column from examples will have a guess at what we want. And it's actually a very good guess, but it's not quite there, because I can see this 11 in row 6 is 0 to 100. I want that to be 0 to 50. Okay, now it's actually got worse. I've got a lot of nulls now. Let's try another one. I've got this 213. If I put 200 plus, and let's do a little bit more work. I have this 73. That will be 50 to 100. Okay, it really doesn't seem to be understanding me now. It started off great, but now it's kind of fallen a little bit short. However, if we look up top, it has been writing an if function for us. So although it's not understanding, we've got the framework there to work with. So I'm going to click OK and keep the work they did. And with the columns selected, just manually adjust what they've done for us up top. So I'm going to use this. If the sales is greater than or equals 200, then that's going to be 200 plus. Else if the sales is greater than or equals 100, that will be 100 to 200. Else if it is greater than or equals 50, then that will be 50 to 100. And then finally, if it's greater than or equals 0, then that will be 0 to 50. Else, it's going to put the word null. And if I press enter on that, we have our results. For a final check on here, I'm going to move my sales column to the end, because that is where I would typically see the sales, and rename this newly created column as order size, and then close and load this back into Excel. Home, close and load. Now we have made all of our transformations, it's time to create the pivot table. So if I click in the sales table, insert pivot table, and I'm going to put it on a new worksheet. And the plan was to create 2 quick pivot tables here. The first one is going to be the product category with the name of the product underneath it, and then the sales as the value, so that we can see the sales by product, but then also the totals for each category. We can right mouse click a value, number format, and format these appropriately. I could choose number with 1000 separator and no decimal places. And that's how I could format it. We could adjust the header to something more useful, such as total sales. And then for a second pivot table, I'll select the pivot table and take a copy of it by clicking and dragging and holding Control. I'll resize those columns, and on this second pivot table, I'm going to remove the category so that I only have the product, and in the columns area, I'm going to move the date. It will auto group it into months, which I'm happy with, but then for one little bit extra, I'm going to drag the region into the filters area so that I could filter for a region such as North, nice and quick, and work with that pivot table. So a couple of quick pivot tables as the simplest way to analyze that data. On the course, Ken covered pivot columns and grouping data using Power Query, and that could be something else that you could have used for this solution, or maybe you want to play around with and see if you can achieve that to get these results. But the quickest and simplest way is definitely a pivot table, and also if you're taking into account other users, they are going to be more comfortable with these outputs. I hope you enjoyed that challenge. Taking on Excel challenges like this is the best way to test and develop your Excel skills.
So did you get the same results using the same approach? Or did you try something different? Share your take on the challenge in the comments below, or join us for more discussion in our Slack channel, link in the description. Thanks for participating, and make sure to subscribe to this channel to get an alert when the next challenge is released.